The thing about much of folklore is that it rose from the unknown. As time has gone on, technology and science reached a point where, in some ways, the needs for these type of stories were lessened. Electricity meant the nights weren't pitch black anymore. Medicines replaced superstitious remedies. To put it concisely, we began to explain and understand what was previously unexplainable. I would wager that the majority of stories I researched for this channel started off as spoken word and tend to be recorded in written form during the 1800s. I think because of this they can be quite inaccessible, so my goal was to always try and give them a new lease of life. The radio plays were a good way to do this, but the issue always was that the medium just isn't very visual, and when you've got creatures with such a legacy behind them, they deserve to be seen. Unfortunately, I can't draw or paint, and I can't afford to have somebody do that for me every video, so I was a bit stuck. However, recently AI generated artwork has reached a point where I think it's good enough to at least start to give us an idea of the images these stories might have conjured up in the minds of those who first told them. Perhaps then we can also use technology to give us these near-forgotten tales a new lease of life. So, without further ado, welcome to Volume 1 of Monsters Visualized, a series where I'll be going back over the stories I've covered on this channel, but this time, hopefully bringing them to life in a way that I wasn't able to before. This was the very first legend I covered. It's a sad tale about a bride who decides to play a game of hide and seek with her wedding party and chooses to hide in an old chest in the attic of her grand house. Unfortunately, it locks shut, trapping her inside. The groom and her friends are unable to find her in the sprawling house, so eventually she passes away. Years go by, and ultimately her skeleton is discovered in that same chest, still wearing the bridal gown. I gave the AI various prompts for this, trying to capture the claustrophobic nature the story inspires. I didn't manage to get it so that the body was in the chest, but I think in a way I prefer the imagery of this gown figure standing alone amongst the cluster of this abandoned attic. I'm still learning to use this tool, and the pictures will never be perfect anyway, but I think this gives a great sense of the overall story. I then chose to upscale this one, as even though the figure is headless, it feels as if this ghost is perhaps guiding you towards the chest where the body is hidden in the background. Obviously, this didn't happen in the retellings I found, but I think it's alright to take this liberty for the sake of the storytelling the picture does. Let me know what you think anyway in the comments, or if you think it would have been better a different way. Black Annis is a witch-like figure from the countryside around Leicestershire who lived in a cave next to a great oak tree. She was known for kidnapping children, skinning them and hanging that said skin on her tree as a gruesome warning to others who dared to come near. Feature-wise, she was said to have blue skin and long talons, which some say she used to dig out her cave. When I started off trying to generate an image of her, I think I included too much. These early samples tried to include the tree, her blue skin, and the cave all in one, so it ended up being a bit muddled. I then scaled it back and tried to focus on her and the cave, but again I ran into issues. I think the old woman aspect and the colour blue were being focused on too much. I mean, this one looks like it could be someone's gran just hanging out in a cave, so not really what I was going for. I then got a bit more descriptive and started using words like haggard in my instructions, and I felt like we were definitely getting somewhere. I chose this one to upscale, but I still wasn't happy with it, as the blue kind of just overtook everything, and it's just not what I was going for, and not how I imagine Black Annis anyway. Using slight artistic license, I started again, and focused on her being a witch in a cave, but still including the important detail of her terrifying talons. Eventually I upscaled this one, and I think it worked rather well. I had to sacrifice the blue element of her face, but the fact the tree roots are coming through the ceiling, there are potentially bits of viscera in the background, her talon hands are very creepy, and the way her hood just shadows her face, I thought it captured what she is about brilliantly. Jinny Bingham is an interesting one. Normally when it comes to witches or healers who are given a bad rep, I tend to be quite sympathetic, as any woman in those times who was eccentric or behaved differently from the norm could be villainised by the local community. However, while Jinny did seem to help the local waifs and strays, she also made her way through 4 male companions who all seemed to meet semi-sticky ends, one in particular involving an oven. Now, these men weren't necessarily good people, but it does cloud Jinny's character a little nonetheless. In any case, when deciding what part of the story to depict, I chose her death. They said that when her body was discovered in her cottage, the devil himself was looking over her. This is something I really wanted to show, but again, I went too complex with my first attempt. Some of the pictures ended up with this weird mix of inside and outside combining, while others had the devil and Jinny sitting together outside, which I quite like, to be honest, but I really wanted the setting to be inside, as that's a key part of the story. After a bit of tweaking, I managed it and I came up with some I really liked. All the elements are there, with the armchairs, a demonic looking figure, and a more humanoid figure as well, who I guess we'll assume is Jinny. This might also be a good time to mention the style of the artwork I'm imitating. All of these are emulating the style of Turner, who was an English painter from the late 1700s to mid-1800s. I've always loved the way that he handles light, which I think works particularly well in these imitations. The way it seems to work with the AI also allows the figures to be less detailed, which I think can be considered a benefit at times when dealing with creatures and monsters which everyone will have imagined slightly differently anyway. I came up with 2 I couldn't choose between, but I like them both, as you seem to have the demonic figure looking over a humanoid shape, and so I like to think it captured the sense of the interaction between the deceased Jinny and the devil himself. The final legend I want to cover in this video is the Black Dog of Newgate. In the late 1500s, bad harvests and drought led to a famine across England. People everywhere were starving, and this included those locked away in prisons. At Newgate prison, a group of starving inmates were convinced that one of the men locked up with them was a wizard, and out of fear along with hunger, they killed and ate him. Unfortunately, it turned out that man was actually a wizard, and before he died, he set up his revenge. One by one, each of the men who ate his body was hunted down and slaughtered by a shadowy black dog. Even those who managed to escape the horrors of the prison were then hunted down and torn apart on the streets of London itself. To create this image, I wanted to try and get it so the dog was stalking someone through the back alleys of old London. It started off quite well, but once I upscaled, I thought the dog looked a little misshapen, and there were just so many people around, it didn't really feel like this was mysterious or it was a shadowy thing. It was just like it was in broad daylight, so it didn't really make much sense. After messing about with the prompts a bit, I think I ended up specifying the word alone, and got some interesting results. I chose to upscale this one, as I like the way the dog is almost melting into the background, as if it's coming in and out of the shadows. I also really liked how it looks as if it's staring at the people in the distance, as if it's figuring out who it's going to be hunting down next. That was going to be the end of the video. I only have a basic subscription to Midjourney, which is the AI that makes these pictures, so this seemed like a good number of images for a video with the monthly allowance I get. However, I remembered a comment from Hero Protagonist, I hope I'm saying that right, if I'm not, I apologise, who misread the title for one of my videos and came up with an idea for a megalodon being stuck in a lock. I thought I'd stick that into the program to see what it could come up with, and it actually ended up being the hardest one out of all of these to do. I loved the underwater atmosphere of all of these pictures, but it felt like in each one the megalodon wasn't really coming out very well. It took me ages to mess around with, simplifying things while still trying to get that terrifying look, but Eventually, I came up with a couple that I think work quite well. The first kind of looks like the shark is swimming under the water, but it's all a bit muddled up, so the actual shape of the creature is kind of lost. Trying again, this time it looks like we've got a megalodon kind of coming out of the water, ready to take a bite out of something. I thought this worked pretty well, but I tried again and got this. To me, it looks like a shark swimming through a dark lake with its jaws opening up, ready to eat whatever is in front of it. Let me know what you think down below, and if you've got any suggestions of things that you'd like to see, I'd love to hear them because it's great fun to mess around with. Thank you for watching the video, and I hope that you enjoyed being able to put some pictures to stories you might have only heard the audio versions of before. If you want to see all the pictures and commands that generated them for yourself, this is my Midjourney account, so you can follow that and see what I did. I'll also be posting more of this type of stuff to Instagram, so give that a follow as well if you want to see more stuff like this, as well as all the other things I look at too, like old books and some IRL stuff that will be coming up in the coming weeks. If you want to hear each of these stories in more detail, have a look through the YouTube channel. You should be able to find the old radio plays that go into more detail about all of them with like little narratives and things, but bear in mind, these are the very early ones, these are the first ones I did, so they are not amazing. And if they are too quiet, I've also remastered some of the audio for the compilation videos I've done, so might be best to watch them instead actually. If you like this sort of thing, let me know, as I have had so much fun making these images, and this whole video has just been so different to what I normally do, but it's been great. Give me your suggestions, give me your feedback, I want to hear it all, so please just let me know. Apart from that, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.